Hey, folks, let me ask you a question. Do you have priorities? My guess is you absolutely do. But the bigger question, are they chosen with intention or are they chosen by accident? I'm here with my fantastic guest author. Let's talk to us, Andrew, about priorities on purpose. Welcome.
Thanks, Carrie. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Hey, listen, man, I think a lot of people in life would say, my priorities are messed up, or I don't really have a priorities. The truth is, if we look at your calendar, if we look at your wallet, um, everybody has priorities. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's just a question of what are those priorities and are you intentional and living into them?
Fantastic. Well, listen, tell us how the book started because, I know a little bit about you. I think people will be shocked to hear a little bit about your past because you look like this amazing guy who's successful, who is now a best-selling author. I mean, you've got this great company that you started with what, 100 employees?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but like most people on the planet, there's a little story behind the surface. So why don't you tell us the behind the surface story?
Yeah, for sure. So just a little bit about myself. I grew up in Philadelphia area. I now live on the north side of Pittsburgh with my wife Shannon and our three daughters. And as you mentioned, Carrie, we have a private equity real estate company. I started that in 2012, and my wife was actually kind of first person to join the company. And as you mentioned, we've been super blessed and have 100 employees now.
Fantastic.
Um, so yeah, we're having a good run so far. But you asked the question like, how did I get where I am today? And it's a really interesting story. A bit of a zigzag path to getting where I am today. Um, that really started in high school and me getting expelled from high school.
Wow.
So yeah, got kicked out of high school. I was always had a little bit of a rebellious spirit and also a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. And unfortunately, I was combining the two of those at the time by doing things entrepreneurial that weren't necessarily legal.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that was really where I started thinking about purpose.
Mm,
Fast forward a few years, went to college, started with a great career at a local regional bank here, PNC, and then from there started this company. And not too long after starting the company and getting married, I actually got diagnosed with cancer.
wow.
So been 10 years cancer free, which is great. But that was the beginning of me asking the purpose question, like,
Mm.
why am I here? How do I want to be remembered when I'm no longer here? And those are sobering questions, but really important questions for us to ask ourselves.
Listen, that's amazing. Entrepreneurial and prisoners. I've heard that, let's just call it misdirected passion, misdirected drive. Who knows?
Right.
But when you were in that spot, I think as I've chatted with you in the past, you really talked about, was it somebody who believed in you and started kind of like mentoring you a little bit and it started giving you confidence? Can you tell us about that journey?
Yeah, for sure. I'm very fortunate that through the years I've had many people that have um, kind of spoken into my life
Mm,
and believed in me even before I believed in myself.
yes.
One of those people is my wife. I mean, we went to high school together, as it turns out, and we weren't together as a couple then, but we had a great friendship, and she believed in me, and it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like somebody actually believes in me. And then I had a few mentors, and one of my mentors, I remember him as I was thinking about my purpose, and I was thinking specifically about starting this real estate company. He said, "Hey, Andrew, you can always start this company. If it doesn't work out, you can probably go back to doing what you were doing.
Wow.
But think about the lost opportunity if you don't pursue your passion, pursue
Mm.
your purpose." And that was wisdom that I needed at the time, and that just showed me, hey, it's going to be okay. Even if it doesn't work out, I'll figure it out.
Wow. So you now today have this Rhino operating system,
Yep.
and it's placed within this book, Priorities on Purpose. I'm going to go to your website here because as I've learned about this, it really is fascinating. And it's built around these who, why, what, how, and when. And there's really an order to it. And it took me a little while to realize, hey, this is a horn. I totally get it. Now that I see it, I'll never forget it. It's like the FedEx arrow, and it's pointing to the who. But again, like the more I've dove into this personally, the more I think it's just genius. So where did this come from? Is this your own journey? What talk to us a little bit and why the Rhino, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did this come about? So our company Burgo, um, our sort of unofficial mascot is the rhino,
Mm.
and we have a core value that is actually rhinocerality, which is
What?
yeah, which is one of our 6 core values, and it's sort of likened to being like a rhino. And the thing that I love about the rhino is 2 things, and I think they both describe the operating system. One is resilience.
Mm,
So rhinos have this really thick skin, and they deal with adversity all the time. I mean, these conditions in the jungle. And so my own journey, I already talked about, diagnosed with cancer, expelled from high school. I actually got locked up a few years after college. And so it was like I had continued to, and some of that adversity was self-inflicted, if I'm being
mm,
totally honest. But there was a resilience through that I needed, and that's one of the
yeah.
things. Yeah, one of the things I really love about the rhino. The second thing is the concept of alignment.
Mm,
So the rhino, before it charges, aligns itself to a target.
mm,
And again, if you just look at my journey, oftentimes I was just charging in all the wrong directions. So
yeah.
I was like this rhino that just wasn't aiming before charging.
Wow.
And so that's why I love the rhino. It's like this picture of alignment and resilience. And so the Rhino Operating System, we actually developed it here at our company. So like you said, we got 100 employees, and everybody collaborated on, hey, what is needed for a holistic life operating system?
Mm.
And just to talk about how the concept of an operating system came about, we run on what's called the entrepreneurial operating
Oh,
system, or
yeah.
EOS. So we
Tanisha,
love,
let's tag EOS. We love EOS. EOS Worldwide, Mark O'Donnell, Kelly Knight. So you are one of the 250,000 companies that run on EOS, and I bet you nobody has rhinocerality or whatever you said for your core value. It's true?
that's right. Yeah, so we love EOS. We're totally drinking the Kool-Aid, like I just told Kelly the other day. And we when we originally found EOS, so we self-implemented EOS back in 2018,
Sure.
and then we hired an implementer in 2020, went through the 2-year implementation. And it just sort of dawned on me. I realized there's these 6 components of EOS. And
Mm,
I was like, you know what? These 6 components are the foundation of EOS.
wow.
And it just dawned on me, I was like, you know what? I have 5 components of this life operating system
Yeah,
that we've been teaching. We've been teaching this at Burgo, our company, for the past 2 years.
yeah,
And those are the components of our operating system. It's like, hey, these are the foundational components. Yeah, there's the 6 components of EOS, which we just love. Huge shout out to EOS. It's been transformative for us as a company.
sure.
So while you need an operating system for a company, it's just a way of organizing human energy. You also need an operating system for your life. Like
Mm.
how are you organizing your human energy at your
Ooh,
life,
that's good.
in your marriage, with your parenting, with your health, your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all of these things. Like how are you organizing your human energy in your life? So that's what ROS is for, this Rhino operating system.
I love it. I love it. So it sounds to me then that this book, Priorities on Purpose, really there's a double impact right here. One is to say, look, your own company's running on it. How many other companies do you think are going to read this and be like, Psh, you know, we might have EOS as a business operating system, but our people need the ROS operating system. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity there for sure. I mean, we at Burgo have always considered ourselves what's called a deliberately developmental organization, or a DDO.
Mm,
There's really good research in the Harvard Business Review articles around, particularly Bridgewater Associates. This guy Ray Dalio wrote a book also called Principles. That's really
yes.
good. And so there are some companies that take a holistic perspective
Okay.
to their people. And we've always viewed that as part of our DNA. So
Mm,
our mission as a company is improving lives through real estate. So real estate for us has always just been a means to an end. It's about the lives that we're impacting along the way. And a key part of that is the lives of our employees, of our teammates. So yes, we want to impact the lives of our residents and our investors, but also these 100 people whose lives we steward.
mm,
We think day in and day out about, okay, if they come to our company and they're extremely high performing and doing an incredible job, but it's at the risk of a failed marriage or failed parenting
mm,
or them not being home for their kids, you know what? We've just failed them as an employer.
mm.
So for us, it's this holistic perspective of these aren't just numbers that are coming to work for us at Burgo. These are human beings that have lives outside of work, that have different roles and responsibilities outside of work. And so how can we love them and how can we care for them as humans, not just as employees?
Makes sense. So in the book, do you tell your own journey? Are people going to, you know, are there worksheets? Are there things that you draw them out? Questions? What do you think?
Yeah. So, and you asked earlier too about the 5 components. So that there is an order to them. It starts with who.
Mm,
And so while, Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start with Why,
yeah.
organizations starting with why is a good idea.
Mm,
But in my opinion, there's a step even before that, which is to start with who.
mm,
And so I think to really know your why, you have to know who you are. So you have to know your unique DNA, never before been created, never again going to be created. What is your unique who? And that tells you something about your why. And then your who and your why together should inform your what. Like, what are you actually doing? Your roles and responsibilities. And then your how and your when are all about rhythms of execution and energy optimization.
mm.
And so those are the 5 components in the book. At the end of each chapter, there's an exercise that's sort of a light way to jump into action for each of those chapters, each of those components.
Mm.
But we do also have an entire course with 3 tools for each of those components. And each of those tools is like a separate worksheet and a workbook that for folks who want to do a deeper dive, there's a whole course out there where you can do the deep dive and you can work through the worksheets as well.
I love it. I love it. So, what do you hope happens with the book? Like we have a coach friend, Dan Sullivan, strategic coach.
Yeah.
Hey, you and I are chatting here 3 years from now, and I'm saying, hey, was that priorities on purpose a good thing? What do you hope happens from it? One is you're a dad of 3 daughters,
Yep.
and so I'm sure there's something there first. In fact, when we chatted in the past, you said that was one of the big ones. But after your daughters, what do you hope happens with the book?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So a couple things. One, as I think of the book and who I wrote it to, I actually just kind of wrote the book to the former version of myself.
Oh, that's good.
And so, like, a lot of authors write a book to the entire world,
Mm,
and not to discredit them, but I think really good books are written to a person.
yeah.
Um, and so that person for me is actually just Andrew, who was drifting through life. I just didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of drifting like a rudderless boat, right? Whichever way that the waves took me, that's the way I went. And so what the book does is it gives you design instead of drifting.
That's good.
And so designing your life and that's a big thing. One of my mentors, Michael Hyatt, who provided endorsement for the book and really helped
Yeah.
provide a lot of content for the book. I really appreciate him. That's a framework I got from him. Like, how can you go from drifting to design?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, as I think about my 3 daughters, and the dedication says this as well, but I just hope that they are able to avoid the mistakes that I made, that they're able to avoid the drifting and instead live a life of design and intention. So to answer your question, 3 years from now, if we're sitting here, how do I think about success? I think a lot of people would answer that question with like a number, like I sell so many books or impact so many people's lives. And I shared this with you before, but as I think about the answer to that question, I honestly just think if one person reads this book and
Mhm.
has their life changed, it will have all been worth it.
Wow.
I think it'd be great if more than one person has their life changed, but I wrote the book for one person.
That's good.
And so if one person reads the book and has their life changed, I mean, that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
I read a series of books and every single one of them changed my life. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People changed my life. Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my life. It was all these mindset books that just changed my mindset. And that's what this book is. It's a mindset book. It's about just changing your mindset and giving you the tools to do it as well.
I love that. Yeah, I've told people as we've published, 1,100 authors, I say, look, the best books are where you write to your former stuck self.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you can write to that person because A, you had compassion for that person. B,
Yeah.
you know their story. But this is the book. It sounds to me like Andrew wishes he would have been handed because the opposite is true too. If you can have priorities on purpose, tell me if I'm correct or not. You could have priorities on accident.
Yeah.
Is that
And
true?
usually what happens is when your priorities are on accident, your time is going towards stuff that you otherwise would have spent that time differently.
Mm,
If you just look at like sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or if
sure.
you think of, we have a separate pyramid in our book that we talk about. At the very baseline, most people are just surviving, right? Like if I can do my vocational life account or life priority well, great. I'm showing up, I'm earning an income, I'm
Mm,
surviving. And then some people get to really focus on relationships.
mm.
We call those the accounts of relating. Um, but then at the very top is those accounts of being, the physical, mental,
That's
emotional,
great.
and spiritual. And that's the stuff that people often neglect. And so as you climb that pyramid, the hope is that you're spending more and more time on those accounts that often get neglected.
I love that. That is so good. All right. So what do you do personally for the ROS? Like, does this affect you daily, or do you think about it once a week, once a month, or is this kind of like always in front of you?
Yeah, it's really always in front of me. So it depends on the component, but the way I like to think of it is you have to put the work in on all 5 components. So
Mm,
start with who, get clear on your why, execute on the what. And then the how, to answer your question, is about those rhythms of execution.
mm.
So for me, I've used a paper-based planner for years, the Full Focus Planner.
Oh yeah.
I love the work that Full Focus does on the paper-based planner. I also have what's called a hybrid system. So I also use an electronic app. Um, and so what we've done is we're actually building, and you'll see it here on the website. We're building an app that for folks who want to use the electronic version, that will be available in January for folks to use as well. Um, and that is how I execute daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. That those are my rhythms of execution every day, setting tasks, setting goals that align with those life priorities, those things that I really want to accomplish.
Mm.
When I'm no longer here, what I really want to accomplish. Those are the things that I focus on every day.
You can see my speaking tab, correct? On the website?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I know you speak. I've heard you speak before, and you're compelling. Um, and here's the point. What happens if people say, "Look, we don't want to just read the book. I mean, the book's great, the app's great, but we also want to bring Andrew in." Like, is that possible? How does it happen? Talk to us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's possible. You can reach out to us on the website, but basically we have everything from like a 20-minute TED talk kind of thing to my typical keynote is 1 hour. So I've got a 1 hour keynote where I walk through all 5 components in an hour.
Nice.
And then we even have like a 1 day deep dive workshop. That
Mm,
some people that want the hands-on, go through the workbook, understand my who, understand my why. It's gonna be better for like a corporate setting, like you mentioned, other companies that want to, get their employees really understanding their unique DNA, their purpose, things like that. And we even have a 2-day version that is a deep dive on all the components. So really depends on what folks want, but feel free to reach out and we can talk about those options.
I know the CFOs listening or who will listen, they'll be like, well, what's the ROI on that? But I'll tell you what, Andrew, you've seen it with your own people, I'm sure. The 100 plus that you have. I mean, Gallup says every year that 29% are only engaged. The rest are actively disengaged, as in like we're trying to take down the company or I mean that's crazy. I know that category is crazy. So you have around 55% are just not engaged. They're just checking out, just a job, just a paycheck. But then you have this like 17% that are actively disengaged.
Right.
So I believe that the ROS, the Rhino Operating System, the priorities on purpose is built on. I believe that if people took a deep dive into that, they would move up a category. What do
Yeah.
you think?
Totally agree. I mean, obviously, that's why we believe in the deliberately developmental organization philosophy. Um, we think that not only is it good for people, like
Yeah.
not only do we want to love people, but it's actually good for business.
Mm,
So, organization like ours, where you might have an annual payroll of $8 million, $10 million, what if those people were 1% more effective at their job? Or even 5% more effective at
mm,
their job.
mm,
What are the savings to you as an organization from having people that show up and can execute more effectively? And you can just do the math of what's that worth? What's the ROI of that?
mm.
And so an organization like ours, we believe, hey, when we steward these 100 employees well, and by the way, encourage them to take time off, beg them to take
Ah,
time off, because that's the fifth component is all about the when component. It's all about sharpening the saw, those rhythms of work, play, and rest.
mm,
When we can really have our employees show up as their best selves when they
wow.
do show up, we believe that's good for our business and actually makes us a more effective organization.
Mm, that's good. That's good. So I know we didn't talk much about your business because we're really focusing on you helping other people out with the book and everything. But if people are interested in your business too, I'm gonna go to that website really quick. But I see that you're in, is it Pennsylvania?
Yep.
Okay. Does that mean that mainly Pennsylvania would be served, or what happens if people want to learn more about this?
Oh, yeah. No, from an investment standpoint, we have 230 investors in 26 states.
Wow.
So we have investors all across the country. We invest in real estate in 4 states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Western New York, and West Virginia. Um, but yeah, we actually have a fund right now. We've raised $23 million and we're trying to raise 25 million.
Mm,
So we're actually just getting ready to close out our opportunistic fund. You can find out about that on our website, burgocapital.com. Happy to chat with folks if they're interested in investing.
perfect. That was beautiful, by the way. All right. Well, listen, Andrew, this was fantastic. We're going to put the links one more time in for Amazon, for the business, for the operating system. And I know that chatting with you has definitely stretched me. It's you ask good questions. Are we living by design or default?
Mhm.
And I think most people, get up, the inbox tells them what to do, the phone tells them where to go, the calendar tells them who to meet with. I mean, it's just kind of like autopilot. And I like how you're kind of doing a pattern interrupt and saying, hold on, you were meant for more. So
Yeah.
thank you, Andrew. And folks, get a copy of the book. You also have some fantastic bonuses as we close. And that is literally just to go to rosjourney.com, click book, and they can essentially just put the name, email, where they got it from, and then they're going to get these incredible bonuses as well.
Yeah, exactly. Over $300 of bonuses. You get some of the, free access to our course we talked about and the workbooks, things like
Fascinating.
that. And yeah, look, hey, Carrie, like you said, nobody can do this for you.
Mm,
It's one of those things that you just have to be intentional about. And people ask me all the time, like, hey, is it too late?
Mm,
And I really just want to encourage anybody listening. We've talked about this before, but best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the next best time to plant a tree is today.
yeah,
So don't look at me and say like, oh yeah, he does this, but I can't. Yeah, anybody can do this. It's really just about getting started and being intentional. And so the book's a great place to start, but it's never too late. Jump in, focus on yourself and prioritize your priorities, but do it on purpose.
I love it. Andrew, thanks so much for being here. And folks, get the book and start living with priorities on purpose. We'll see ya.
Thanks.